This is the Amp Hour Podcast, released July 8th, 2025. Episode 697. LEDs Everywhere with Tim from Mitxela. Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics.
And I'm Tim, also known as Mitxela.
Hey, Tim from Mitxela. How you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good. I'm really glad to talk to you. I'm really excited to talk about all your projects. People probably seeing you on the internet of places, maybe Hackaday, maybe other similar kind of aggregators of interesting things, but your projects often are combinations of awesome hardware, firmware, mechanical. Like I really like how it kind of all comes together, the way you do that, and you show a bunch of it too, which is great.
Yeah, anything from metalworking to electronics to software things, interesting emulators.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about those. We were introduced by a former multi-time guest of the show, Mike Harrison. So thanks to Mike for that. And it's I would love to just talk about the first one that I think about. One of your recent projects where it really was a lot of that stuff with your fluid pendant. That one, especially the mechanical. I was surprised at just like how much mechanical stuff you had in there. So could you maybe first describe what the project is, and then I'd love to ask you some piercing questions about how to get better at machining.
Yeah, I mean, this was it started off as an idea to build. It started with the previous project, the volumetric display, where just to demonstrate that display, I rendered some fluid simulations in Blender, and then obviously, once you see this little LED display running a fluid simulation, you think, oh, wouldn't it be great if that fluid simulation was in real time, and as you tip it around, the fluid would dribble around. And that was the original pursuit, was can we make something where you've got a fluid simulation in real time? And it just so happened that the way I ended up presenting that was in this kind of pendant form, where it's something like a bit of jewelry. I don't really consider myself at the moment a jeweler. I'm worried people will think I'm very much a hobbyist at the.
Tim, could you make me a custom engagement ring for my fiance?
Watch out. Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, who knows what I'll do next.
Give me enough time and enough money for prototypes, and maybe.
Yeah, and indeed access to the right equipment, because that is one of the things I was very lucky to get as part of that project. Is a lot of my metalworking is done or was done at the Hackspace in London, the London Hackspace, which has now reopened in a new place, but for a while it was out of action. It was they got evicted from the building. So asking around, I managed to get. I mean, I'm not sure if it's entirely because of my kind of YouTube status that I've got more success with this lately, which is, if you ask around, say, hey, could I make use of your workshop? Can I have a go on that big lathe of yours? People are very.
It'll show up in the corner of a YouTube video soon. Who knows?
So that. Either way, my friend Martin gave me access to his lathe, which, I mean, it's not quite the same as having your own big lathe or big milling machine, because he has these machines as part of his company, which so it's a commercial operation.
That's a weekends kind of thing, huh?
Yeah, so I can only use them when they're not in otherwise use for other stuff. He coincidentally is very interested in watch making, watch repair kind of things. So he had all of these like little collets and stuff, which are perfect for what I wanted to do, which was make a little pendant and ultimately put a watch glass on the front and make it look really, really quite swish, at least compared to a little 3D printed thing or something, which just wouldn't have had the same kind of shine to it.
Right.
And of course I gold plated them as well.
Those last steps really, I mean, they really do make it.
Polishing and the plating. The plating is horrendous. It's you've got to use potassium gold cyanide, which is it's
Sounds healthy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's got cyanide in the name. So I think, I mean,
Yeah, right.
how much PPE should I use? I mean, is a mask okay? Gloves, I guess.
Right,
Do I
right,
need a fume hood? I have no idea.
right. You need,
And
like, a
like,
bomb disposal robot to really use it or something
yeah,
like.
I'm. It's hard to find out, if I'm being cautious enough or not. Uh,
Yeah.
Either way, it's I've once tried filming it while I was doing it. I thought, this is I'm gonna somehow like smear cyanide all over the camera, aren't I? And then I'll just lick it later. Uh,
Yeah, of course,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Smudging it, getting a smudge off the lens and
yeah, it's fun to do once or twice. I'd say I don't recommend people do. I mean, there are presumably services where you can just send things off to get gold plated. So that's probably what I'd choose to do if I was doing it again.
well, in terms of, like, relative size, so it's using a 2450 battery, which
Mm.
is what, 50, is it 50 millimeter wide?
It's five
Uh,
millimeter thick, 24
oh, 5
millimeters
thick.
diameter.
There you
Yeah,
go. I always get those backwards.
yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, there's a few different similar size ones, but it's a coin cell,
mhm,
but it's rechargeable lithium ion, and
right. And a
and
little beefier too, right? I mean, like, it's
yeah,
bigger
yeah.
charge
It's
output,
it's
that sort
about
of thing.
well, there's a couple of different models in that size, but the biggest one is
Mhm.
120 milliamp hours, which is pretty great
Oh,
for
really?
I mean the LED display and the simulation because it's
Mhm.
using that STM32L432, which is the super low power one. That's drawing like 10 milliamps, so it's almost nothing. Um, yeah, and
And
I mean, yeah,
10
there's
microamps at sleep or
oh,
milliamps?
10 milliamps in use.
During processing,
Yeah,
right? Because 'cause it's got this huge yeah, right. Because it's processing fluid simulation.
yeah.
Okay, I'm with
But I
you.
mean,
Yeah.
that's
I'm,
really
like,
low
thinking
considering it's
got it,
running
yeah,
a fluid
right,
simulation and for
right. So
display.
that's like when you're using that spec of the what, like, current per megahertz kinda thing versus, like, the
Oh yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, so there's the processing power of it, but I'm pretty sure actually most of the power consumption is just the LEDs on that. I didn't actually split one or the other. Um, there's no shift registers or anything on that. I mean, the way I drove the display, I was really pleased with. That was kind of eye opening. The Charlie plexing it, but wiring it as a diagonal crisscross, which halves the number of wires needed. Like it was like this eureka moment. It's it was very satisfying, and it has led to a couple of other projects which I haven't put. They're not on my website yet, but they will be eventually. I just need to write them up.
Mhm,
Yeah, there's a few
mhm.
other projects where I've used the same technique to very good result because basically putting all of the LEDs end to end uh, means it doesn't just mean that if there's a solder bridge between them, it doesn't cause a problem. It also means that you could put a wire directly in between the two pads and
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
and it will make electrical sense. So that that really changes what you can do in a given tolerance on a board, especially for the very small LEDs like the. So I haven't published this yet, but I've managed to make a LED panel of 0201 LEDs at a 1 millimeter pitch
Mhm.
on a two-layer
Wow,
board,
okay.
which is
Oh, wow.
like
That's
I
very
didn't think it
impressive,
was
yeah,
possible. I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know that.
yeah.
So I think Mike Harrison was showing off this 1 millimeter pitch LED matrix, which was on a four-layer board with blind wires because
Mhm.
it's so dense. Like how do you get the
Right.
connections together if and yeah by doing this technique of putting the tracks diagonally and all of the LEDs end to end, I managed to do it on a two-layer board. I'm just like, what?
And you said when you still have the micro on the back for that as
Yeah,
well?
so I've got what I'm doing for those panels is I've got CH32V003, and each group of 240 LEDs has one CH32 chip driving them in a
Ah,
Charlie
okay.
plexed way. And yeah,
Yeah.
I've done. I think I won't tell you too much. I'll publish it
Okay.
at some point in the
Alright. Yeah, yeah,
future.
yeah.
But
Something to look forward to, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I think the O201 is probably the other piece that again, if people haven't seen this yet, we'll have links, but yeah, not very large, LEDs,
they're
so
tiny.
they're very packed in there, yeah.
Yeah,
But
um,
that also adds to the basically, it looks like a display. I mean, like, if
yeah,
you're far enough away, it looks like a
yeah, and,
contiguous
and they're really
OLED
bright.
sort of
Like
thing. Yeah.
of course you're using the same amount of current as you would a larger display, but you've made it denser, so the brightness goes up, which is kind of interesting. Like the
Mm.
first time I was like, wow, that's a lot brighter than I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like 5 milliamps doesn't sound much to an LED, but if it's 5 minutes for every LED in a 1 millimeter grid, that's
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a
suddenly
lot
adds
of
up.
output, yeah.
It's like a
Yes,
torch in your
yeah.
face.
Yeah, so I mean, on this, so the new one is the 2-layer, this one was 4-layer on
On
the
the
pendant?
matrix earrings or on the pendant was 4 layer, yeah,
Pendant, yeah.
and that was
Yeah,
only 402 LEDs.
got it.
So yeah, I mean they're huge in comparison.
Yeah.
I mean they're still
Right, right,
tiny.
right.
It's a pitch of 1.5 millimeters on the pendant.
In terms of the firmware that you have to have on the STM32L432,
Mm.
so, like, that's all, like, just bare metal C,
Yeah, yeah,
like, just
and
rocking a
say
algorithm that you wrote kinda thing?
so. Yeah, the algorithm was prototyped in JavaScript, but based on the work of Matthias Müller, who is some kind of god of simulation. Apparently, works for NVIDIA and has a YouTube channel showing off how to how to write a flip fluid simulation and many other things, which are kind of fascinating. So yeah,
What is FLIP?
flip
That's like
is
an acronym?
the fluid implicit particle algorithm, which was published in the 80s, and um, it's I looked that I specifically went after that because it's what I've used in Blender. If you just run, I think it's called, is it MantaFlow? I don't know. The plugin that comes with Blender for fluid simulations is doing a flip simulation, and yeah, it's what I'm familiar with. There's a bunch of other ways of simulating fluids. Specifically, it's for if you've got a mixture of air and liquid or vacuum and liquid. I mean, it's not modeling the air, but yeah, it's this hybrid approach between using the kind of grid-based, the Eulerian simulation and particles.
I don't know a bunch of these words you're saying, but they sound very,
So you have
I've never done, yeah, I mean, like, we had a Blender person, we had Sam on Alder on here, talking about Blender.
hmm,
That's, that was kind of my first, Blender stuff other than, like, seeing people do animations on there. So it's interesting to hear you talk
oh,
about
it, it's
the
it's
simulation on there too.
it's fantastic. It's the best piece
Yeah.
of software ever. I love it.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. Huh.
Blender's my favorite thing. Like
How else
more.
do you use it? I mean, what else do you use it for?
Oh, not a huge amount. I mean, I used to use it to edit videos, but it's not really what it's. It can edit videos, but it's not the most convenient tool for that. It's it's mostly so. Yeah, I did. I've done a few animations. I've done various things. What I really love about I don't claim to be an expert at it. I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not very good. I use it and I think, oh god, this it's so much it can do, but the learning curve is so high. However, it's completely free, and there are so many resources out there. There's so many tutorials. Like it's just it's fantastic. I wish it was this good when I was younger. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
15
yeah.
years ago
You
when
see, like, a different career path almost at that point,
oh, it's more about when you're a teenager. It's very easy to learn new software. I think you've got all the time and enthusiasm to just
Mm.
try it and figure it out and see what works. And as an adult, if something's got a steep learning curve, it's just everything takes so long. Maybe it doesn't take that much longer, but it feels like it's so much harder. I
Got it.
mean,
Yeah, yeah.
um, the example I
We
might
don't
give,
have much time left.
example I'll give is what I don't. I think this is okay to say. When I was like a young teenager, um, I was in the playground. I acquired a compact disc which had a
Uh-huh.
copy of a piece of software called Photoshop, and
No.
no,
I would never.
yeah, and
Yeah, yeah, okay.
my
You mean you found it?
yeah,
You found it off the
I
ground.
found it.
Right, right.
It's interesting looking back because like my parents and teachers at school were like, "Oh my god, piracy is wrong." Oh,
Right.
you
It's like a
absolutely
moral
it's a
issue, yeah.
moral issue, and yeah, like all it did was turn me into a future customer, right?
That's
Like,
right.
uh,
Right,
I
right.
mean,
They couldn't see it, right? I mean, I feel like that just the model wasn't there. There
yeah,
was no way that that was gonna possibly work,
I
but yeah,
mean, yeah.
yeah,
So I
it's
spent
done.
many hours, many happy hours as a child playing around in Photoshop, and it's
Mm,
like, yeah, I didn't do anything commercial with it, but I learned how to use it, and that was really valuable. So
right.
yeah.
And now you're not gonna change to GIMP or some other one, right? It's like,
Well,
yeah, now the lock-in, right? Yeah.
the story has changed since they switched to a subscription
Got it.
model.
Oh, the cloud model. Yeah,
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 so
okay.
I
Sure.
don't fully approve of that. So it's a mixed bag. But yeah, I mean things like Fusion 360 or Fusion offering a free tier, even if it's a hobbled tier, I do approve of that. And I mean that's what they should have always done, right? Because kids playing around with it aren't costing them anything, right? They're just yeah,
They're content creators and they're yeah,
yeah.
they're future users, like you said.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean with Blender, it's completely free and it's open source, so it's not even an issue. It's free for
Yeah.
everyone, and yeah, it's just so
Here's my thing on
powerful.
Fusion. Fusion, they never made a Linux port. I
Yeah, that
get it,
really bothers
it's
me.
not their thing, but that was the only thing holding me back from moving to Linux. And, like, that is the reason I switched to FreeCAD and,
Mm.
for my own detriment. It's,
It's
not like I'm
so
doing a ton, but yeah,
FreeCAD is so it's almost there. It's
it's
just
getting
got
there.
a
Yeah.
lot of glitches and little things to fix and features to add, and it's just I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
want it to succeed. I
I'd
do
say
use it. I try and
5
use
more
it.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
because I remember I started using KiCad or KiCad. It was just when they released version 5, I think, and it
Yeah,
was
okay.
like it's
Yeah.
just it's usable now kind of thing. Because I was using Eagle before that,
Yep, yep.
and yeah, it's only gotten better. So I FreeCAD it is just about usable, but not for
Yeah. Yeah,
assemblies and
it does.
things. It's just I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's on the cusp.
It's on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want it to succeed though. And I think one of the bad things about Blender is it set an unrealistic standard for open source software because
Mm.
they move so fast and they're doing so much so well. I think people have this expectation if they see, oh, Blender's able to implement this feature. It only took them that long, and you look at like KiCad, who's their user base is a lot smaller, and they're still like they're doing great, but yeah, it's nowhere near the same ballpark. Uh, but then I don't know, Blender gets tens of thousands in donations every month or something. They've reached that critical mass where they're just everyone's people are using it commercially, and now it's very viable, and they've got a full team of employees making it better, and it's fantastic. And I really wish there was a Blender equivalent for well, basically FreeCAD, um, yeah, and
Yeah.
pretty much
Yeah.
other things. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
totally, totally.
yeah,
Yeah, I think, Blender has the benefit too of, like, just broader support, broader
yeah,
general interest in the space, right? That totally
yeah.
raises users, raises the number of donators, yeah, that sort of thing,
I
so,
mean, I was kind of amazed recently. Last year, I did some work for a special effects company, and they called in an outside consultant for one bit of work, which is NDA, so I shouldn't talk about it. But I was just
no worries.
amazed that the consultant was using Blender. It's like
Yeah, right,
it's
right,
in the
right.
industry now. They're using it.
Yeah, it's
It's
out there, man.
won. It's done
Yeah,
it.
right.
you know.
Yep,
Um,
yeah, right, people
yeah,
are paying for that, yeah.
yeah. So I
That's
couldn't
great.
be happier about Blender. I think it's one of the best things to have happened in the world.
Yeah.
I wish there was an equivalent for. I mean, even just Photoshop and GIMP. GIMP is just I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, like Photoshop CS6 was feature complete.
Mm,
It didn't really
yeah.
need anything more. So yeah,
What about AI tools? Come on, man. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Well,
I
just
know.
to tie it back to the Blender stuff too. So you you started with simulations on this to get the fluid simulator working and stuff like that, right?
Mm.
But then you tied it to hardware. But then did you have like a kind of back and forth once the hardware is up and going? Like how did that end up working?
Um, well, if we go back in time to the volumetric display where I was rendering them in Blender, I mean that in itself is kind of a testament to how useful Blender is because I was like, how do I generate a volumetric video of it was meant to be a candle. So I mean, fire simulation is part of the same fluid simulation package, really. But I just happened to do a liquid to begin with and thought, oh, that's fun. Um, but yeah, so I rendered the fire, but then I was like, oh, what can I use to turn that into some a blob of binary data that I can play back on the device. And yeah, there's a Python scripting interface, and I made a big old rectangle, uh, like a thin plane, and did a Boolean modifier with the fire simulation, and then rotated the
Mm.
plane, and yeah, just link the camera to that, and then image that. And yeah, I couldn't think of
Oh,
a
so
faster way to
you
do it.
spun the camera
I spin the
around
camera
in
around
Blender.
it and have a,
Oh,
a
that's
plane
smart.
that is kind of slicing through
Yeah.
the 3D model. And
Got it.
yeah, it was
We should probably explain what the tiny volumetric display is
yeah,
as well, because
yeah.
that's probably
I
pretty
mean, it was
important to the
it's
context.
I didn't invent volumetric displays. There's other people who've done it, but it's basically like a persistence of vision display where you're spinning a thing round, except you're spinning a whole 2D panel so that you can generate a 3D video, basically. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's very low resolution. The fun thing with that one was how again it was a conversation with it was Mike Harrison and Moritz Voldermeyer, who has made some electronic candles, and
Oh, cool. Okay.
um, it was a conversation about how could you make it the look like fire from every angle. I was like, well, why not just spin the LED matrix, right? Like, oh, that would be too complex. You couldn't make mass produce. You'd need brushes.
Oh,
It's
Tim,
it's
it's sound like you got nerd sniped.
yeah, and then I did.
Oh,
I was just
you
like, oh,
couldn't you couldn't
you
possibly.
couldn't possibly do that. And then
Yeah.
and I was like, but wait, what if you span the whole thing and put the battery on board and put the motor on, and then it's just a spinning top with a candle on top, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was one of those things where didn't expect it to work. Wasn't sure. I was like, oh, I'll just try. I'll just, it's so cheap to get a PCB made. And yeah, and
I know.
incidentally, that the I didn't mention that I borrowed this pick and place machine. I'm still borrowing it. I have it on semi-permanent borrow because
That's called stealing,
yeah,
here
I
in the
mean
US.
it's basically because I keep doing interesting things with it. I keep justifying. It's like, oh no, I still need it. But
Who did you, quote unquote borrow it from?
so it essentially is it was donated to the Hackspace.
I see.
And
Got it.
when the Hackspace closed because it was evicted from the building
Ah,
and everything had to go
got it.
into storage, I was like, well, storage
Store it at
costs
my house.
money.
Yeah.
Why not store it at my house? Yeah. So that was
Gotta be careful. That's how you start another hackerspace right there. You get enough tools, and then someone says, "Hey, can I come borrow the tools?" And you're like, "Yeah, come
mm,
on in. I guess I should charge you for entrance, and we should all have the governing board." And then
no. I mean, if anyone at
on and on and
Hackspace
on.
still wants to use it, I'm very very willing to hand it back. I've definitely had my fun with it, and will
Yeah,
continue
yeah.
to have fun as long as I'm allowed.
Are
But
you using it for the O201s, or what are you
yeah,
using it?
so I did.
What size
I mean,
can it
it's
do?
not supposed to be able to go that small, but yeah, it works. I was kind
Oh,
of astonished.
which model is it?
So it's I'm gonna have to look it up. It's a Charm High machine. I put it
Oh,
on.
Charm High. Wow. Okay. Is
Um,
it the one open PnP compatible one?
I
Like a
don't
desktop
know.
one?
So where would I have written it down? Probably on one of these. It's probably on the volumetric
Hmm.
display, isn't it? Yeah, CHM T36VA.
Hmm.
So
I'll have to look that up because that doesn't mean it.
no, I mean it's one that was available. That's all I say, and it's okay. So it doesn't have automatic tool changing, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have an ability to quickly change reels. So you all of the feeders are one piece. You can't just so
Like a strip.
yeah. It's a real pain if you want to change what part is loaded. So that the project I got it for, the project I borrowed it for, the justification for getting it was the precision clock, which I've now finally released. But that was like you know more than a day of just unpeeling bits of tape, sliding them through, and then using the tiny little stickers to join the film to the take up spool, and then typing into a spreadsheet, what parts were loaded, what the spacing is, what the width and the ticker tape, the sprocket hole spacing and all that. So yeah, a lot of tedious work to set up. That kind of put me off using it for most things, except in the case of an LED matrix where there's only one part. Suddenly it's really efficient. It's like, oh yeah, I want to place, I don't know, 2,000 LEDs. Well, yeah, I just load the reel once and then away we go.
Yeah.
So I have,
Right.
again, haven't published these.
Like, Tim, can you make a multicolor display? No, I can't. No, I couldn't possibly. I can't stand it. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, I've made a few displays which I haven't published, but again, we'll do eventually. There's one I was carrying around at EMF, which it was just over 2,000 LEDs on the thing, and
Wow.
yeah, it took about 50 minutes to place on the machine, and
Okay.
I mean, it was quicker than by hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. There is some crossover point, like where it makes sense to get it all set up, and even though it's annoying, right? It's
Yeah. No, it's
the right
I mean, I
call.
have I've ordered assembled from China a few times, and it's it's amazing how cheap it is, but it's not quite as instant gratification as assembling the boards yourself,
Yeah.
especially if you only want one. Yeah. Uh,
Well, yeah, right. Yes. How often are you building just one? Is it often?
in the case of things like the volumetric display, yeah, it was one. I just made one
Oh,
because it was just
but
a prototype.
and then how many did you end up making eventually?
Just the one. I only made one. That's it. Yeah, I made one.
Oh, sorry, volumetric.
Oh, the
I'm sorry,
volumetric
I'm
display. Yeah.
confusing them.
Sorry. Yeah, the pendants.
Yes,
I
I'm
did make
sorry.
a
I'm
few more.
confusing about the pendants. I
Yeah.
was thinking, like, I remember you saying in the video that you made like a bunch,
Yeah, a
but
small handful of varying
got it.
quality. And yeah, I did. I don't know. So since then, I said, if I'd known that they were going to sell that well so quickly, or that people would want to buy them, even with the caveat that it's a handmade item and it's going to have blemishes, and it's yeah. If I'd realized that people would absolutely want to buy it, even for what I think is crazy money, I'm
Yeah,
very very
right.
grateful to them. But yeah, of course, yeah, I'm kicking myself that I didn't make like 50 or 100 of them before putting the video up, because like, oh,
Right,
I'd have been
right.
laughing. But no, it was just a small handful of those pendants, which yeah, no, I'm delighted. That's compared to other projects I've put on YouTube. That's definitely my most financially successful one now. I instantly made
That's good. Yeah.
quite a bit of money, which is fantastic. I'm very very grateful to those people. I mean, the person who bought the the very first prototype, because after I sold the what I considered the good one, like because it was basically, it wasn't meant to be a production run. It was me trying to build it slightly better, but then after those sold, I was like, well, I've still got people asking, oh, do you have another? And I was like, well, I've still got the prototype, the very first one. Uh, and the person who bought it said, I'm so glad to have received serial number one. I was like, well, that's the one with the most blemishes. And like, yes, but it's the first one.
Collectors,
I was like, oh,
collectors, man. You got to
yeah.
watch out for collectors.
So
And
I
then
was
yeah.
delighted by all of that. It's,
Although it is interesting that it's come to like, I mean, I guess the electronic space as well. I don't know, like like the sneaker crowd. I feel like that's like its own subculture, right? But like,
hmm,
electronics, and I guess because it's also jewelry. There's
yeah,
also that.
people
It's
are
like you just touch on these different subcultures almost.
yeah, I didn't. It didn't even occur to me that if it's billed as jewelry, then people will pay thousands for jewelry, right? You need a
Right? Yeah.
diamond
Good
ring
point.
that's,
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, that puts it into a different category of what I was thinking. Like certainly in my mind, I was like, oh, this is a nice fidget toy, uh,
Mm.
which is
Yeah,
you.
maybe your firmware in there is the new, De Beers, constrained market kind of thing. Like
Oh, I mean,
that's how you control the market, right?
if only, if
Yeah,
not for the
right.
fact that the algorithm is almost identical to the one that Matthias Mueller put up
Yeah, but
as a
you've that
tutorial.
special something,
Yeah, I
that
mean, I did
special
make it more
something. That's
efficient in a couple of ways, a couple of little
yeah.
tweaks that made it
Yeah, okay. Mhm.
work better on embedded. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I don't know what to do with that. It's like it probably is a viable product, but
Yeah.
I don't know how to do a hardware business really.
Yeah.
That's not my
I just
expertise.
well, we talked about it before the show too. I think it would become a job, right? I mean, it becomes
Yeah.
its own thing, right? So that's a
Um,
where did you learn to machine like that? I mean, like I
oh,
don't really know anything
that's an
about
easy
it,
one
but
to answer. Uh,
okay.
yeah, I watched YouTube tutorials.
Huh, okay.
Well, prior to that, so I really wanted. I started off trying to. Oh no, let's go back in time. I was taking apart printers when I was a teenager, like most people do. There was a time when the business model for inkjet printers was, the printers are basically free, and the ink, and then they'd stop working. And there's a website called FreeCycle, which I like very much, and
Oh yeah, I know that. I remember that one. Yeah.
basically in if you're in a reasonably dense city, then people will give away stuff that's not working for free. And I found I mostly wanted all the stepper motors. I was like, oh yeah, I need stepper motors. Oh, there's 23 printers on FreeCycle.
Mm, yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
so I was like pulling stepper motors out, and then I was like, oh, all these mechanical bits. I was something. I can't remember quite what it was that triggered me, but something made me want to try and build a sewing machine. um, this
Huh.
seems like a weird story. I'm definitely missing
No, this
something
is
out.
great.
It was. I find sewing machines fascinating. It's not about the process of sewing. It's just that
No,
it's this mechanical thing ties a knot with the thread, and it's like,
Yeah, right, like the slow motion of, like, seeing
yeah,
the needle go down. Yeah, that's
and
an amazing, like, GIF that you could see online
it's
of,
it's
like, how it works. It's
it's
wild.
even looking at the animations of how it works, I wasn't clear. I was like, I still don't
Yeah,
like. The
yeah,
more you think about it, it's like, yeah, but how does it turn the thing if the thread's going around it? Like, what? So
yeah.
I was somewhat, maybe again, nerd sniped by that in thinking about how
Mm.
they work, and I was trying to look it up, and I found, of course, Tim Hunkin's The Secret Life of Machines. This is my introduction
Oh,
to The Secret Life of Machines. Fantastic program. Tim Hunkin is a legend. And the episode about sewing machines was like, ah, so good, and yet I still wasn't
this
satisfied.
is this is your origin story, huh? Okay,
Well,
yeah.
it's one of the origin stories. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, right, right, right.
There's an off.
I'm waiting for so you said stepper motors, but then you said sewing machine, and I do not think stepper motors for sewing machine.
Oh no,
So,
I mean, I wasn't originally
I'm
trying
gonna
to
step
get them for the
okay,
sewing machine. I
got it,
I
got it,
I wanted the stepper motors for like electronics fun stuff.
got it,
You know,
got it, yeah.
um,
Fiddly bits.
yeah, I'm definitely. I can't remember the link somewhere that put me onto sewing machines, but uh, whatever the reason, I tried to build a sewing machine, and I was somewhat nerd sniped by the fact that Isaac Singer, according to The Secret Life of Machines, he built his first prototype in 11 days. So I was like, could I build a sewing machine? And I don't know anything about metalwork. And I tried, and I made something that almost worked. I was so close. I almost worked. I didn't get the feed mechanism to work. I managed to get a few stitches, but it's this monstrosity of broken printer bits stuck together. Uh,
Nice,
it's,
nice.
I thought it was great. Uh, but also, it was really, really clear that I did not have the right tools and skills to do metalwork, like shaping bits of metal with files and a drill. It was like, how do you do this? And the consensus was you need to learn to use a lathe. Right, that's the
Got
mother
it,
of
yeah,
all machine tools.
that's
And
right.
yeah, so I
And
started.
that's where we started talking about that on so Dave, my co-host, he's like he went to a mechanical show and he's like, "I think I need a lathe." And I'm like, "Dude, you do not need a lathe." And
Everyone needs a
I
lathe.
no, I still hold that most people don't need a lathe unless they're looking to learn how to use a lathe, right? But like he didn't have any knowledge of what he would want to build with it. And like I just as like a starter tool, you think that's the first tool you should
Yeah.
learn with?
Oh,
Was that the first tool you
I
yeah?
mean, so I don't know if
Okay.
this was
All
different
right.
in for previous generations, but certainly when I was growing up, I didn't ever touch any metalwork in school or anything like that. Um, and you know, in the old days, I guess it was a course, but no, they don't. It's of no use to us these days, is it? And also, there's that attitude that like it's kind of like
Like blue
it's not
collar,
intellectual.
like
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like
right, right,
oh
right.
yeah, that's for it's for dum dums.
Yeah.
You're not clever enough to do
Right.
maths or something, then you're
Right,
I don't know.
right. Actually, yeah, Destin just talked about that on Smarter Every Day with his like trying to build a grill brush in the US. And like I
Hmm.
know nobody makes molds anymore. There's no mold makers in the US anymore.
Yeah,
Very limited number, I suppose. But like my grandfather was a tool and die maker. Like
yeah,
that's what he did his whole career, like
yeah.
that's
I
yeah.
mean, it was a big deal once upon a time.
Yeah, right. yeah. Yeah. And they
Yeah,
used to build tanks and stuff, I suppose. Yeah. A lot of metal work.
I
a
mean,
lot of metal on those things.
I tried to find somewhere to use a lathe. This for some reason I don't know. I just said I'm just gonna go for it. I
Got it.
ordered
Okay.
a mini lathe. It's like a Chinese brand mini lathe. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm just gonna.
Yep, yep.
It was a fairly big expense for me considering it was just like a hobby impulse. It wasn't an impulse. I thought about it for a long time. I was like, I need it. I need it, and I
Yep, yep,
it's
yep.
fantastic. I'm I just feel sorry for anyone who doesn't know what it's like to make things on a lathe because even if you make a mistake, it's still
Right.
beautiful. It's rotationally
Yeah.
symmetric mistakes. It's so good.
That's a good one. I like
Ah,
that. Yeah, I
yeah,
like
it's
that. Yeah.
it's it's
Yeah,
great.
and you do have a bunch of stuff. I mean, you have like I'm just looking through your
Yeah,
hardware page, and like you have stuff that's earrings, knurling, time
yeah,
waster, stuff like that. Like that is all
yeah. It's just having fun on a
lathy type
lathe.
things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
yeah.
It's all brass, is that right? I mean, is that what you usually
Some
use?
brass, some steel. Originally, I was just for I don't know, maybe the first year. All I was doing was taking the bits of old printers, like all of the nice looking bits of metal, like those rods, which I think they're plated. Um,
Mm.
anyway,
Like
I just
the sliders, like the linear
yeah, like
rails and stuff like that?
it looks like a chrome rod, but it's just like a chrome plated bit of steel,
Mhm.
I think. I
Right.
was
Yep.
just chucking those in the lathe and then just making stuff. I made a little tiny little steam engine.
Mm.
Yeah, and I learned pretty much all of the skills to use it from YouTube. It was at the time it was Mr. Pete 222 was the channel who just he was an ex machine shop teacher, and he
Oh,
just
okay.
put up a bunch of this is what we used to do in class, and now America is falling apart and all that. But we need to get kids interested in these skills. Which I was already enthusiastic, but yeah, um, it's great that I could just go on YouTube and learn how to do this stuff. Um,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
great. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, like, so I had a mill thing myself, and I set it aside. But yeah, I know the similar. I have the similar instincts, but way less follow through than you. So that's
yeah.
where we diverge
I
quite a
mean
bit. Yeah,
that is a huge part of it with the hobby projects is yeah,
just
the,
keep going, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
motivation is it's something because obviously what I've tended to do, especially in the last decade or so, is I finish a project and then I put it on my website. What I
yeah.
don't tend to do
That's
is
is that the goal? Is that
uh,
that's like the done and dusted kind of thing?
well, it used to be. Originally, it was like post it on the website. Then it was like post it on the website and make a YouTube video. And then now it's like,
Yeah.
oh, do I post it on the website, make a YouTube video, put it on GitHub, and also sell it?
Promote it. Yeah, right, right.
So where do you draw the line? But something I
Yeah.
don't post on my website is the failed projects, the ones which I just don't see through. Uh, so it's
Oh, that's not true. You have some that you
there's
have tags. You have
there's
stuff that
some,
says
yeah, but
abandoned.
I do. Yeah,
You're saying there's more.
there's certainly in the last few years, I pretty much only post the complete ones. Um,
Oh.
it's just
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. How
it's
we
somewhat
change,
like
huh?
filtered because I've gotten very good at completing projects, but there's a ratio of projects you start and projects you complete. Um, and pushing that ratio to have more complete ones. I mean, it's the more things you complete, the better you get at completing projects. It's that kind of unstable
I agree with that.
equilibrium. Yeah, and
Yeah. Yeah.
if you get into the habit of just half finishing things, then it cascades, uh, and it's a constant struggle.
Mm.
But well, maybe,
That's interesting. That's
yeah,
interesting though, because it also so again, from an outsider perspective, I like like you have, like you talked about the sewing machine
yeah,
and it's on there,
and it is
right? And
abandoned.
like,
Yeah,
but it's abandoned, but I can go see it and I could see where you stop. Like,
yes,
this might be me as a podcast host, like hoping to like, talk to you at some point and be like, oh, look at Tim's history back here. Like, that's super cool. But like, I think there's also value about the
oh yeah,
documenting the
absolutely, 100%.
stuff not doing, which is
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
mean,
Like, do you think then that it's problematic if you
well,
only,
I definitely don't want to be the kind of person who only posts their success. Like
you know,
that's not what I'm trying to do. It's I'm kind of doing that accidentally in recent years
I
because
see.
I think it's partly because the site and the YouTube channel have got a bit more popular, and it's like I'm
Yeah.
almost afraid to post things which are
I
just like
know.
half
Yeah.
finished. It's like people
Yeah.
expect a volumetric
Like the fit
display
and
or
finish
something,
of
and it's like, oh
totally,
well,
totally. Yeah.
it's a bit weird if I post like, oh, I tried to do this thing, didn't really work. Sorry guys, I don't know. But yeah, no, it's something I really hate. If you look at like an artist, like a successful artist or creative person, and you look at the things they've done, and you can only see brilliant things. You can't see their early
Yeah.
attempts, which were rubbish,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's
Right. Oh,
because
come on,
yeah,
man.
everyone has to start somewhere, and I really,
Yeah.
really respect it if people do keep online their early work, which is kind of cringe, but it shows, here's the progression. And if you stick, I mean, the one that I'd like to tell people about is web comics. There's a web comic which is now finished called Schlock Mercenary, and I really liked it because the guy updated every single day for 20 years or more, every single day. And when you look at the beginning of the comic and he's like, wow, this is rubbish. It's like MS Paint drawings. It's
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
it's not. I mean, it's okay. I mean, good on him for sticking at it.
Yeah.
And then like 10, 15 years later, he got nominated for a Hugo Award because of how good his comic
Really?
was. And it's like,
Wow.
is there any clearer proof that if you just do it every single day, you get better?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
yeah. So I find that really kind of inspiring to see these stories. And again, some of my favorite electronics projects are, I mean, there's like Sprite TM, who I think is
Oh,
yeah,
of course.
whoops,
Jeroen. Yeah.
Sharon Domber. I don't know
Yeah.
how to pronounce this.
Domburg.
Domberg.
Yeah, Domburg. Yeah.
Like
Every
his
time I say it, I always get it wrong, every single time. So just saying Sprite, that's why
Sprite,
he, I
yeah,
think,
he,
tells people to call it Sprite TM.
it's his projects are amazing, but like his early
Of course.
projects are, I'm not going to say mundane. They start off like, oh yeah, I could do that, and then it's kind of progresses over the years. He gets better, and until he's like doing magic, and yeah, seeing the progression is really, it's really cool. He's, yeah, he did. I
He's
remember
great. Yeah.
one of the projects that inspired me was his he did a synthesizer on a Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy
Mm.
Advance allowed you via the link cable to send a payload, so that if you wanted to do two-player games or more using just one cartridge, you could send a payload across the link cable. And so using that mechanism, you could send a synthesizer down the link cable. What he did is he took an AT Tiny chip, and that like implemented the protocol to send the payload, and it had on its flash memory, it had his synthesizer game, which sent across the link cable, and then the AT Tiny turned into uh, a MIDI to link cable adapter. And so you put the whole thing inside a cable, and it was just like, okay, you plug one end into the MIDI keyboard, one end into a Game Boy with no cartridge in it, and you have a synthesizer which you can use the piano
Yeah.
keyboard to play the chip tunes. And it's just like, it's so perfect.
Yeah.
It's just sort of wrapped up in a neat little, so that, yeah, you may, if you look at some of my projects, you may see some influence on the things
Got
I
it.
try to
Got it.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so yeah.
Not least of all, you've also we were talking before the show about the, your, things to try and maybe fail at, but also just to try. You said writing a Game Boy emulator is
Mm.
a thing that of joy. You said.
Oh yeah, yeah. I thoroughly recommend anyone who thinks that it's within their capability. Obviously, it's not a beginner project, and it's not easy. That's the point. It's a challenge, right? It's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a challenge to write an like. Can you say you really understand how a computer works if you've never written an emulator? Because like, in order to write an emulator, you have to describe how that computer system works in every last detail. And if you
Yeah.
make tiny mistakes, then it won't be a good emulator. But
Mm.
Game Boy emulator seems to be the perfect point in terms of how difficult it is, because it is difficult, but also it's achievable. Like, one person can write an emulator in a couple of weeks, or maybe less. It depends how good you want your emulator to be. I mean, I think within a week I had Tetris running, and or just about running. No sound, but Tetris doesn't make use of most of the hardware features. It's very simple. It's one of the first games that came out, and so yeah, you can get to Tetris very quickly, uh, and it's just really satisfying to play Tetris on an emulator that you wrote. And yeah, I went the whole way through. I played all the way through Link's Awakening, and I found like weird glitches that just halfway through the game it would suddenly crash, because until that point it had never tried to address this particular bit of memory, which was invalid. And the way that the real
Oh,
hardware
interesting.
behaves is that it just drops the high bits and wraps around, whereas in my JavaScript array it was trying to access, it was just zero or whatever. So yeah, finding those little glitches and actually playing it through to the end. Oh yeah, the one of the weird things which I thought was hilarious. There's the Game Boy processor is it's very similar to a Z80, which
Yeah. It is
uh,
it's a custom, right? It's a
yeah,
custom
so
processor
it's
though.
slightly different, but the instruction set is
Yeah.
mostly the same. And
Got it.
there's an instruction on there called DAA, which is decimal adjust after something. I can't even remember what it was. I mean, I wrote this in 2018, so it's not the freshest in my memory. But
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
No worries.
yeah, this instruction, I remember when I was writing the CPU, what I did is I tried not to look at any other resources. I thought, oh, it's a challenge. I just got to look at what the instructions are and implement them. I'm not going to look at other people's emulators, because the Game Boy is really well documented. So you've got that ready for you.
Yeah.
So I could
Yep.
look at like
Yep.
what does the Game Boy do?
It's like the answer. It's like the answer key at the back of the book. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
You
I,
have
I
to
didn't I didn't
avoid
want to look
looking
at
at.
other emulators directly.
Yeah. Right.
Uh,
Okay.
but I was like, what the hell does DAA even do? Right? I was okay. So it's after a binary coded decimal, like packed BCD, arithmetic, shorthand instruction. I was like, oh, I don't know what it does. I'll just do this, and I did what I think it was supposed to do from, and so you think, oh, does anything even use this instruction? And it turns out the answer is yes. So in Link's Awakening, I was playing through on
Future Tim will find out.
uh, yeah, I was playing through and I went to the shop and I bought the shovel for 200 rupees and it subtracted the wrong amount. I was like, what? Oh, no, I implemented DAA wrong. And yeah, it is used.
GAA was
It's for the,
subtract. That was all it was,
it,
or what?
it does some kind of carry operation on packed BCD, basically. And yeah, after that, I looked up what it's supposed to do and I found the formula. Yeah, it's again, so apparently people do use BCD or did, for, at least for things like scores where it's got to be displayed. So I guess it's helpful there. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Um, yeah.
That's
Great fun.
really, yeah, that's some deep stuff though too. I mean, like that is the what made you decide? I mean, you said it's a joy to do it, but like, what was the motivating force for it? Like, what made you say like, oh,
Oh,
this is the time?
it was. I just left the job I was doing. I took some time off. I was like, I've always wanted to write an emulator. I think. I mean, it's it's been in my. I don't know. I mean, one of the things that first got me into electronics was emulators. I think,
Oh, really?
um,
Okay.
or at least
What about them?
okay. So
Like,
I'm trying to think, where did the story begin? I think it's with No Cash, because so when I in like early 2000s, we had the Game Boy Advance, and the Game Boy Advance would allow you to send a payload to another Game Boy if you wanted to do little two-player games or more. But there were some games where that didn't work because the game was too big for that payload. So you had Zelda Four Swords would only work if you all had a copy of the game, and so I never found four people to play it with because it was too hard to find enough people to play it. And we thought,
hmm.
oh, well, I found one person to play it with and it kind of worked, but we thought, oh, surely we could just emulate this, surely. And the Game Boy Advance emulator at the time was called Visual Boy Advance. And it was fine. It worked. You loaded it up, and you load up another instance of it. It's like a 50 megabyte executable. You load up another one, and then you form a TCP connection between them, and you could just about emulate two. It was rubbish. It did, and like the idea of doing four at once was just not going to happen. It was really choked on two. And I looked up, how can you emulate four Game Boy Advances at once? And I found this emulator called No Cache, and the guy who created it was just one guy. I think his name was Martin Korth. No Cache emulator. I tried to download it. First of all, like his website was so weird. Probably again influential, like the hand drawn weird aspect, and the fact that he called it No Cache because he was just broke. Like, and he was trying to market this. He was like, if you're a gamer, don't download my emulator. Go away. I'm sick of the support issues. This emulator is only for developers for Game Boy Advance games, no one else. And you download the emulator, and it's like, where is it? Where is this emulator? The zip file was like 100 kilobytes or something. You extract it, and you've got like this exe file, less than 200 kilobytes. You think, where's my emulator? There's no other
Yeah.
files in there. You double click it,
Yeah.
it instantly opens, and I loaded up Four Swords, and I just clicked emulate four Game Boys, and it worked. And it was like four Game Boys emulated at once, and the CPU load on that Windows XP machine was like less than 5%. I was like, what? Having just like witnessed Visual Boy Advance failing to do two at once, and this could do four at once at basically no cost. And the executable was smaller than anything I'd ever seen before. I was like, "What's going on here? How is it possible? How are you doing this magic?" And yeah, the answer, funnily enough, the answer is No Cache Emulator was written in assembly. And it's like, oh,
Ah,
so
there it is.
this
Yep.
is the wizardry. And I remember at the time thinking, like, I want to learn this power. I want to be able to do really efficient really fast, efficient programs. I want to be able to really control a computer. And at the time, I tried.
Tim, though, the problem is if you start learning the assembly and getting these powers, you also get the grumpiness with it. That's the rules,
Yes,
actually.
yes.
That's the only way it works is you have to have the two together.
Yeah, there's probably something to that.
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
No, I mean, I struggled like to try and learn assembly as a young teenager. X86 assembly, like I didn't succeed. There was there was like the tutorials basically all assumed that you were a very competent C++ or C programmer and you wanted to go deeper. None of them were for teenagers wanting to mess around.
Right, right.
Um,
Just call up your Intel rep, and they'll be able to tell you more
yeah,
about the
yeah,
x86 assembly set. You know, it's
exactly.
okay.
Yeah, and of course they all assume you are intimately familiar with the OS, like the
Of
Win32
course. Yeah,
API
why
or
wouldn't it
whatever.
be? Right,
Um,
right, right.
and so I think that whole experience made me greatly respect people who program in assembly, but also I had this yearning that was unfulfilled uh, right up until I read one of the data sheets for an app mega chip, which gave code examples in assembly as well as C. And I was like, what? They actually want you to program in assembly? You're encouraged? And yeah, it was suddenly I discovered like the AVR architecture. First of all, bare metal, no operating system to worry about. Second of all, it's 8-bit. And third of all, it's really simple. It's only got like 130 instructions, and you only need to know maybe 50. Uh, and yeah,
You
I
can hold them in your head, that sort of thing, huh?
precisely. You can hold the whole thing in your head. After like a month of fiddling around with it was AVR Studio, which wasn't. I mean, I fiddled around with it, and I felt suddenly it's like, oh, it all makes sense. I understand how this processor works, and I know it's always a black box, and it's like there's a pipeline you don't see and stuff. But basically, it's like I know every instruction has this many cycles. It does this to those registers, and it sets these flags, and that's it. Like that's how the processor works. And this is the first time I guess, yeah, probably for like older people, it'd be like 6502 assembler kind of thing. Like people would,
Mhm,
in
yeah.
those days, it was normal to learn how your computer worked. Whereas now it's like, oh, it's too complicated. Nobody possibly could learn how x86 works, at least not unless they want to go really, really deep and commit their whole life to it. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't know. I just went a bit mad when I discovered AVR assembly. Um, and
So what did you start build like, what did that unlock then? Like, what was
well,
the
what I ended up doing was that oscilloscope games console, which it was it was just I think it just been pent up inside of me, all these things I wanted to do, and I thought,
yeah.
yeah, I did the games console, and I did all that MIDI stuff. Like suddenly, it's like MIDI is easy. It's just it's UART. It's like it's just 3 bytes, and it's just I don't know what was
MIDI is shockingly
it is simple,
simple
but
when it
you
gets down
don't
to it. Yeah.
realize until you actually start
Yeah.
fiddling around with it at a protocol level. Because
Yeah.
if
Yep,
you
exactly.
all you've done is like use it on a computer software, it you've got no idea. In fact, it's one of similar to
I think my first experience was actually buying, like, a broken ass old synth, and, like,
mm,
there was, like, all these things in there, like, "Oh, like, program this to your, 3.5-inch floppy, and then, then it does this and this," and I'm just like, "I don't get it." It was this higher level function on top of it. But, yeah, it was on the
yeah
back end, it's just, like, it's just got that funky plug, and it's just sending serial. Yeah,
yeah
okay.
it's remarkably accessible. Um,
Yeah.
I really don't like it when there's unnecessary abstraction. Well, I mean,
Mm.
I don't know.
Oh, this is a thematic thing here. I was gonna say you and CN Lore, both
Mm,
CH32. I don't like abstraction. This is
yeah,
sounding. It rhymes. I gotta say.
yeah, yeah. I do like a lot of what CN Law has done.
Hmm.
Yeah, we have common interests, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean then? Like for the higher level stuff? Like, so what about when you do see a project and you want to add something that OS, RTOS, or an OS might help with? You just kind of you leave it aside. You simplify, or
Well, it
what do you
depends
do in
what it
those
is.
cases?
So if it's appropriate to be bare metal, then that's what I'd normally go with. And
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
I,
What if your army of robot slide whistles needs to be connected to the internet, Tim?
yeah. Well, then, yeah. I mean, in that case, that one was written in C. I'll be honest.
Okay. Alright, alright.
But that's because it was very quick to
Yeah,
produce.
that
I
wasn't
was
fast.
in a rush, and sometimes it is faster. It's yeah. That is abstraction is allowed if it gets you to what you need
Wait,
to
wait, are
do.
you saying that C is the abstraction?
Yeah, I mean,
You're like, "Oh, I wouldn't go above C." Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay, I guess
boy,
that is
okay.
what I'm saying. But like,
Oh, okay. That's a new one for me.
I
Yeah,
don't
okay.
know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Not the most extreme thing we've had here on the show, but I'm sure a lot of people are listening and nodding their heads. They're like, "Yeah, C. Oh
Yes,
my
yes,
god,
C is so high
who would
level.
possibly?" Yeah, you did say JavaScript before. I'm
Yeah,
just want to point that out. No
yeah,
offense, you know.
I do, I do, I do have a very soft spot for JavaScript in my heart. But
Yeah, it's come on, it's all the right tools for the job, right? This
yeah,
is what we always talk about.
no,
So
I'm just thinking about like Arduino has like digital write, which is an abstraction, but what it's abstracting to or from is
just
one register
XORing a
access.
bit into something.
Yeah, it's just like here's the output register, put a
Yeah,
bit into it, and it's like if you write output register equals one, and then one appears on the GPIO, GPIO
yeah,
one, then that's it. You know the level you're working at. Whereas if you do digital write, a huge amount of stuff could happen, or maybe not. I don't know. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it
But they're doing that for different reasons. They're not doing it just for
yeah, it
giggles,
depends.
right? They're doing it because they're supporting across hardware.
Yes, they're trying to make it easy to get the job done, which is completely legitimate, and I'm not
Yeah,
criticizing that. But if you're
yeah.
trying to learn,
If
the
yes, yeah, right.
abstraction is I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's an interesting kind of through line on your stuff is like I mean,
Yeah, what are we actually trying to
you've
do here? Are we
expressed as
trying to
well, like
learn, or are we trying to?
well, no, I mean, like, you've expressed like with the sewing machine, it was like a struggle, but
Yeah,
also you learned from that, right? I think, hearing you talk about it, you've got some stick to itiveness, like that is very important. And a lot of people, me, don't have that. And so, like, I do think it would be interesting to have like a gauge or a test for people, right? Like, abstraction is like a way to kind of, hand wave past it, right? But like, there are definitely benefits to not having the abstraction layers, and I think it's the knowing what's actually happening in your machine. That is a very critical piece, I feel like.
yeah. I mean, maybe it's not critical. Maybe it's enough to get the job done. You don't have to understand everything. It's not
Yeah.
required. It's just
I think there's
interesting,
benefits though,
and there's
right? Like
benefits. Yeah,
you can do things with electronics that I can't do, right? Because you
mm,
understand parts of the machine, right?
yeah,
C and Laura, how about this? Let's just remove it from me and you. C and Laura can send a LoRaWAN packet
yes,
using a GPIO, and I cannot do that because I don't understand how a bunch of that stuff works.
yeah.
And that's fine. Yeah,
These are the
I don't need to
benefits.
do it. Yeah, right.
Uh,
I buy
maybe
a part if I need to do LoRaWAN. I buy a part. Maybe I load some, things network software on top of it. Like that is a choice I do if I need to. I haven't done that.
hmm,
Okay, maybe I could. But I feel like the big thing here, and like a through line with you as well, is like that you choose to, like, you have a website that is just full of like these choices that you sit down and you do these interesting projects. Like that is often the most interesting thing to me is just like the motivation behind picking up that next thing, doing that next project, finding that next,
hmm,
whistle, slide whistle project. You know what I mean? Like I don't have these impulses in my life. Not impulse sounds bad, but like impulse, like motivations to do it, and
yeah.
that's very impressive to me. I mean, like
Um,
just the creativity.
it's a constant struggle. I'll say that it's not. It doesn't come naturally. I'm
Okay,
forcing myself to do these projects because at this point it's because I've done so many, and it's like, well, yeah, that's the motivation in itself then. But certainly for when I was starting out, yeah, it was really, really difficult. Just finding something that clicks, that you can kind of hyper focus on. I don't know, maybe it might even be a mental condition. I don't know, that kind of like mania that happens when it's something really interesting to you, and you're thinking, oh yeah, suddenly, yes, this is, I'm going to work on this all weekend. This is
got it.
non-stop, and see what happens.
Hmm. Yeah, like the thing to focus. Yeah, that's interesting. So it was never I want to learn X, so I will do Y. It's more just I'm looking for that
Yeah, it
next
wasn't
thing
that
to
well thought
build.
out. No, no, it was.
Okay.
I mean, I guess one of the prime examples of this was fiddling around in. Uh, you're probably familiar with this, the slightly rude name of the language called brainfuck, which is it's it's
I
uh,
don't know that one.
you
Okay.
you don't know it. Oh well,
No.
it's unfortunate that it's named that way. But it is basically the simplest possible programming language. It's only got 8 instructions. None of the instructions have arguments. It's very, very interesting. It's a bit like that. I don't know if you ever saw that Flash game called Quap, where you have to make a person walk, and each button on the keyboard controls an individual muscle group, and
Oh my
and it's
gosh, no, that's
it's so
awesome.
hard because you're like,
Yeah, I
what do
bet.
I? So it's very
Yeah.
much like that. It's like you've got so little abstraction, You got it's so if you want to print "Hello World," you have to do all kinds of nonsense. You add it. You
Oh,
can
it's
only
great though.
increment by one, so you have to do plus 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 plus, trying to get up to the ASCII value of H.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's so
Did you
that
ever listen to the Bobiverse books? The
I don't think
We
so.
Are
No,
Legion, We Are Bob? Oh
no.
no, it's about a software engineer who like basically becomes a computer, but like when he's waking up as like this computer entity, he's got to do that same thing where he's got to like figure out every interface he has
Hmm.
and like learn how to speak again, and like it's all from primitives, and like don't spend a ton of time on it, but it's kind of sounds like what you're saying here. That's like what my brain went to, at least.
Yeah, I mean,
It's great books too. Favorite books. Oh my god, so good. So
what's it called again?
it's called the Bobiverse series. There's like 5 of them now,
Okay, I'll look it
but
up after.
by Dennis Taylor.
Yeah,
The first one's called We Are Legion, We Are Bob. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, there's some amazing things people have done with brainfuck, including
yeah,
like a lot
cool.
of oh, really excellent hacks. There's because basically if you can translate something into brainfuck instructions, brainfuck is Turing complete. So if you
Uh,
can, there's a project called the Movfuscator, uh, which it was basic. They were trying to obfuscate source binaries from reverse engineering, and
okay.
he figured out a way to build a valid computer program using only the x86 mov instruction, that is move data.
Oh
and
my god.
and from that he was able to build a Turing complete. It's so good. It's
Yeah,
basically so
it's like tearing it all down and building it back up again, huh?
it's
Yeah,
yeah. So there,
Mobster. Yeah, that's a tough word to say. I
it's
found a
very,
link
very
though,
good.
so yeah,
Um,
there's a GitHub.
yeah,
Yeah.
the so I don't know. I kind of got just just a little bit obsessed with brainfuck, just briefly, just slightly, just for which was like, can I write a program in brainfuck? There's only 8 instructions. It's so hard to read. And there's a few little programs, like one that prints the Mandelbrot set, and it's like, wow, that is impressive.
Uh,
But
yeah.
can I do something that's like actually difficult to something you couldn't
Oh,
just wing it? Because if you just want to I want to add these two numbers together, it takes an input, multiplies them or something, and then you can just kind of like wing it because the program's so short that uh, that it doesn't really, you can just get lucky. Whereas I wanted to make a program that was like long enough or difficult enough that I had to actually think of ways to get around the limitations, and that's
yeah.
how I ended up writing this tic tac toe uh, computer opponent. It was going to be chess, and I was like, no, chess is too hard. But I managed to do tic tac toe, and it was basically just I started on the Friday evening, I think, of that. This was back when I was working full time, and then by
Yeah.
like Sunday evening, I had it working. I was like, yes! It was just one continuous session of just obsessively coding this thing, and I don't know.
I feel like you should also state to people what this looks like when you look at it. I was very confused at first, but now I'm my mouth is hanging open actually when I'm
Yeah,
looking
it's
at the code.
you've just got pluses and minuses to add or subtract from the current pointed variable. It's like it's got one address space, one pointer,
Uh-huh.
and you can add or subtract from the address space, or you can move the
Yeah.
pointer left or right, and then
Yep.
you can input
Those
and
are
output.
arrows. They're like carrot arrow or not
Yeah,
carrots, but like the
you've
yeah,
got
arrows.
ASCII input and ASCII output of the current value that's being pointed to, and then you've got the loop instructions, which basically it will say go back in the code if the current value is not zero. And that's basically
This
it.
is
That's
really
all of the logic
something.
you have, and doing
Uh,
anything is almost impossible. It's a great
yeah.
challenge. It's another great
Do
challenge
you
if you like
are you a puzzle person, Tim? It
puzzle.
sounds like you might be a puzzle person.
Yes. In some
You
cases,
are. I feel like we could make like a survey for like the types, yeah, like this the puzzle people. I am not a puzzle person myself, and
it
this
really
looks like
depends.
puzzle.
Really, really
Yeah,
depends. Because
got it,
sometimes
got
it's
it.
like, oh yeah, this clicks and I'm hooked, and I just can't stop. And other times it's like,
Mm.
oh no, not interested. I mean, one of the best puzzle game I've played. Get ready. The best puzzle game I've ever played would be Space Chem, which again there's a guy there's a guide for programming Game Boy Advance Assembly called Tonk. And I never got very good at that, but the author of Tonk had a blog, and on his
Oh,
blog he said Space Chem is the greatest game ever. Basically, I've put over 3,000 hours into it or something. I'm like, what? What is this game? And it's an
Yeah.
early Zachtronics game, so they went on to produce like some more famous games, but Space Chem was like one of their early ones, and it was insanely hard, like far too difficult. Like, and it's mostly by mistake. They just accidentally made a few levels that weren't meant to be that hard, and so
Yeah.
it's just nothing's ever tickled the same itch. You've got two Waldos, as they're called, these little grabber arms, and as they move around the grid, they follow the instructions in the grid, and you've got to pick up. It's got a molecule theme, but it's not actually about chemistry. Like you're building molecules by gluing atoms
Right.
together, but that's just the styling. The actual thing is
Yeah.
about logic and kind of programming. And I know I've tried the later Zachtronics games, and they don't scratch the
Right.
same itch as Space Chem.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
episode 332 of the Amp Hours with Zach Barth of
Oh,
Zachtronics.
really?
So,
Oh,
yeah,
tell him
yeah,
Space
we
Cam's
had him
great.
on a long time. Yeah, it was back. I mean, it was when Shenzhen IO came out. I think
Yeah.
that's when we were talking about it. So, Space Camp. Yeah, here's the. I don't actually play video games anymore because
Oh, yeah.
I get addicted to them. I don't let myself. So I probably will not play this. But
No,
man,
I don't
it does
recommend it.
look
Um,
very cool.
it's
Yeah,
it's a unique mindset you have to get into if you're interested. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Buyer beware. Buyer beware.
Yeah, I didn't
Oh,
spend
man.
thousands of hours. I spent about 40 hours on it, and that was
That's not bad.
that was
Okay.
it was a
That's the
good
right amount of
40.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was nice. It was pleasing. Um, yeah. I mean, there's some great other puzzle games. There's Baba Is You is pretty good if you've ever played that. Um,
What is it called? Sorry.
Baba Is You, and it's
Mamba
you
is you.
build logic. You've got blocks that have written English words on them, and you push them around. And if you make a sentence, then that changes the game logic.
Mm.
So it's very weird, very surreal. Gets quite hard quite quickly. So yeah, had fun
Huh.
completing that.
That's a
Um,
good one. Yeah.
and I recently played The Witness, which was okay. It was very interesting. I think the author of that was very had some interesting ideas. Like there were some design decisions which I was like, okay, you obviously did this on purpose. I'm not sure that's the best user experience. It's almost like it deliberately tries to. It's kind of open world. Like you start the game. It's like, okay, there's no instruction. You figure out how to do the first puzzle. You're like, oh, okay, and it kind of teaches you the first few puzzles, and then you escape the beginner area, and suddenly you find puzzles which are just impossible because you don't know the rules, and like you have to just explore to find easier puzzles so you can learn the rules to do the harder puzzles. It's a weird decision. I mean, obviously it was on purpose. It's interesting. Doesn't have a doesn't have anything on Space Chem.
Okay. Got it. So that's your drug of choice, huh?
Yeah, maybe I should replay
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So you also write about a lot of your stuff kind of before the fact. I'm kind of going back through your concepts page, and
Hmm.
you kind of talk about the things you're thinking about. But I'm curious if there's stuff that's not on there that you're thinking about. One thing I'm curious just generally what you're using CH32 V003 for. Other things you're interested in, because I feel like that might be a good way to end of things to watch Tim for in the future. Future
Well,
EMFs, future YouTube videos, future
well,
publications of things that didn't work, because of course you're going to do that too.
yeah, maybe. Well, we'll see. I
Yeah, just
I
do it.
definitely do have several completed projects which will get written up. Some involving fluid simulation, some involving
Oh,
0201 LEDs in matrices,
nice. Okay.
and yeah, I built a new version of the Matrix earrings which I need to publish. Which
Oh,
that
yeah. We didn't
one,
really talk about those, huh? Yeah.
the problem with the first prototype, I mean, the CH32V003 is great. It's not actually the right choice for an earring because it's not very good in
No.
terms of power consumption. And also, I don't think you can even turn off the brownout detector. So if it gets to below 3 volts, it just stops. So I rebuilt
Which
it
for
using
like primary cells, that's not super great,
yeah,
huh?
it's got like an alkaline cell. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So I made a new version of it using an 80 tiny, and I was
Mm.
like, I wonder how low power I can get it. And oh, I got it so low power. Oh,
Yeah.
it's, I really I was really pleased with the results for that one. Basically by a combination of things, but mostly, don't know if anyone else has noticed, the 80 Tiny has a watchdog timer, which
Ah.
you can, at its max prescaler, it's 16 milliseconds. So you can wake up the processor in 16 milliseconds. And what we've got, if we've got a bunch of Charlie Plex LEDs, is you turn one on, then you turn it off for the duty cycle. Then you turn the next one on, you turn it off for the duty cycle, and so on. You go through every LED, turning it on for how much it needs to be, and then turning it off. If you condense all of those on times, like if you pre-calculate how much each one needs to be on at the beginning, and you instantaneously flash all of them on at the start of the frame, for 0201 LEDs, the duty cycle is so low that you can do all of that in like a few microseconds. So you just got a few microseconds of here's all of the LEDs at the right duty cycles for full bit depth, then go to sleep. And then the watchdog timer wakes you up 16 milliseconds later, which happens to be 60
Mm-hmm.
times a second. So you get 60 frames per second video playback or whatever, and the power consumption is just zero from the processor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the right like brightness then too as well to get the output you're hoping for, like in terms of because the duty cycle's low.
In that case, I'm not using any kind of current limiting resistor or anything. So it's just
Oh, really? It's just direct
it's
in
just
on the GPIO, huh?
I mean, so long as you're using a small duty
Yeah.
cycle, it's fine.
Yeah, that's great.
And of course they're Charlie plexed, so it's it's just more convenient.
Mhm.
Yeah, really pleased with that one. Also, I added a bootloader to it. So, I mean, one of the nice things about the CH32V003 is the one wire debug protocol, and like
Yeah.
I want to explore it more. I was really taken with what CN Law said about just if you could have one with no flash memory and just use the
Mhm.
debug
Yeah. Just
protocol, it's like that
hot
isn't.
load it. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to explore that, but
Yeah.
the ATtiny doesn't have that. But you can just put a bootloader on it that uses one wire, right? So
Right. Right. Right.
I was like, oh, is there any one simple bootloader? I'm not above writing my own bootloader, but I found one which was basically perfect. It ticked all the boxes, so I used that. It's called One Way Loader, and it's just a bunch of really. The guy who's done it has really thought about it a lot. So he's added like encryption and stuff, which I don't care about, but it's got auto boarding, which is surprisingly useful. So it starts with a preamble, which is like unambiguously determines the baud rate, and then it doesn't have any acknowledgement messages. It's just pre-calculated the write times of the flash memory, uh, and what you do is you just stuff a load of padding bits or padding bytes into your bit stream, and you know the baud rate, so you can just add the right amount of padding so that by the time the next frame comes in, it's already finished the write, and then it's like, okay, so
Mhm.
this is just a one way flash the whole thing, and yeah, I put that with an infrared photo transistor, and so I can just like
Oh,
infrared
wow.
wireless updates on the
Yeah.
thing. It's like, yeah, wow, that was easy.
Yeah, do you even hold a button down for that? Like, you put it into bootloader mode and then it just
So what I've done
does
is,
its own wait
in that case, I have when you first power it up, it waits a second and says, "Do you want?" It looks for a infrared
for
signal. If it doesn't get
the
one,
header
then
and heat preamble and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
Cool.
like I'm even there. It was that combination of being really lucky and thinking about it a lot. Because
Yeah.
in order to do the layout, I Charlie plexed diagonally these 0201 LEDs, put the ATtiny on the back, and because of the diagonal lines, and I've not got blind wires. I thought, oh, how can I wire this through there? Oh, well, actually, there's enough GPIO on this chip. I can just wire it through the pins of the microcontroller that I'm not using, right? So
Ah,
I'd
yep.
accidentally tied several GPIO lines together. And what I did is I turned on the internal pull-up to use the phototransistor, and it was too slow. It was only able to do like less than 1,000 bits per second. It was really slow. But because I'd wired several of them together, I could turn all of the pull-ups on in parallel and then increase the throughput. Like it's just, instead of being like a 50k equivalent, it's now like a 10k or something. And it's just like, oh,
Mm.
that's convenient. I didn't even plan for that. So yeah,
Yeah.
lots of really cool things happened in that particular project, which I look forward to posting it.
Tim, where can people find your work and find you online?
Well, the most obvious place is mitxela.com, which is Mitxela. It's Alex Tim backwards. And
Yep.
of course, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Mitxela. Those are the
Cool.
two places and the GitHub page, I guess. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
No, I
Great.
don't really have much else in the way of social media or anything.
That's the way to do it. Actually, you're doing that right.
Yeah.
That is the correct answer, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here. These projects are out of this world, man. So
Thank you.
this is really great to watch this stuff. And I think the only thing is, I'm just thinking like, YouTube's good. I see you on Hackaday, I'm sure. I have no doubt I'll see your stuff on Hackaday. I think I gotta put you in like one of those RSS watchers that just kind of pings your site every once in a while to see what's new.
Yeah, I mean, there's an RSS feed which
Yeah. Okay.
should work. I don't know. Maybe I should announce projects at some point. I just
Maybe.
have a Twitter or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't be bothered.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, either way, I'll keep an eye out here, and I'm sure we'll be posting more of your projects as they come up. So thanks for sharing.
Cheers. Oh, thanks for having me.